Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And it's another PFL preview I'm back with today as the PFL 4 2022 regular season card goes down this Friday night, I believe. It's on in Atlanta, Georgia, over in the United States. And to be honest, it's a really good card. I'm really looking forward to this. There's some really good matchmaking, and it's actually gone through for the last hour or so here, looking at some of the fights, looking at some of the fighters, how they match up. I'm very excited about this one, to be honest. I think there's a lot of, do you know what there's a lot of? There's a lot of potentially exciting fights, but there's also a lot of potentially hard battles, and there's one fight, the second fight in the card, that I am really excited about, even though maybe it's not, the standout one maybe for other people, but I'm looking forward to it, and that's one of the battle ones, but I will get into that in a second. So this week it's going to be the 205ers and the 155ers, so light heavyweight and lightweight, going to be taking the stage for PFL. And let me just quickly run you through their standings. So at 205 pounds in the light heavyweight division, there's two fighters on 6 points, and 4 fighters on a 1-0 record so far. Sorry, 5 fighters on a 1-0 record so far. So Antonio Carlos Jr. tops the table on 6 points, with Omari Akhmedov also on 6 points. Then Rob Wilkinson and Corey Hendricks both on 5 points. With Martin Hamlet also on 3 points, because if he got a win as well. And then obviously the people who lost to those are all on 0 points and 0-1. Monte, Pesta, Souto, Sordi, and Clutius, whose name I can't say. And then we've Joshua Silveira as well coming in, who I'm very excited about, but we'll get to him in a second. Then at 155 pounds in the lightweight division, obviously Anthony Pettis tops that. He is not fighting this week now. He'll be obviously fighting in the upcoming weeks, but he is on 6 points. Raush Manfio is on 4. Clay Collard and Alexander Martinez and Olivier Mercier are all on 3 points. And then we've Schulte, Ray Stevens, Don Madge and Myles Price, all on 0 points with an 0-1 record. And then obviously Marcin now is coming in as well, and he is on... he hasn't fought yet, so he's 0-0 so far for the season, and he'll be fighting this week as well. So, after the first week, I suppose the PFL would be actually pretty happy with it. I think that their guy Anthony Pettis is right. Not their guy. I'm not. I'm sure they want whoever wins to win. But the guy you would want if you're a promoter to be at the top, Anthony Pettis, and I suppose Antonio Carlos Jr. as well. He has been one of the stars of the PFL over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, winning last year as well. It was massive for him, and it's great to create kind of a star, a PFL star, I suppose. We saw for years Bellator had different stars, and Michael Chandler and Eddie Alvarez and others as well, and I think it's important for a promotion to create something like that. They have the Natan Schulte and others as well, but this is that's how the standings go anyway, and we will get into the card here forthwith. Let's do it. Opening up the card is actually a fight not on any of the tournaments. It's a 155 pound fight, Bruno Miranda against Nate Jennerman. 17 fights versus 20 fights, 15-5 versus 14-3, and I'm sure if someone pulls out maybe a 155, or if there's an opportunity next year, as I choked to death here, maybe the winner of that will be getting a place in the tournament, or maybe getting a place on the under contender series. Well, I know he fought on the challenger series even. I know that Miranda fought on the Challenger Series back at the towards the start of the year, and Jennerman as well has this is his first fight for the PFL, but he's fought in LFA and other places as well. He's a win over Kevin Kroom, who's fighting in the UFC at the moment. He's fought Bobby Moffat, so he's been around for a good while on the scene, and that should be a good fight. But the fight I'm looking forward to. And honestly, maybe, a lot of people mightn't even know about this fight, or mightn't care, but I care. This is a fantastic fight. Martin Hamlet versus Josh Silveira. Now, if you don't know the name Josh Silveira or anything like that, he's 8-0. And you probably know the name Silveira, and you can probably guess who he is. He's Conan Silveira's son. He's fighting out of ATT. He's 29 years of age, so he's not exactly a young up-and-comer. You know, he's only had 8 fights. He's been fighting since 2019, and he's done great stuff. He's won the LFA middleweight championship back in 2021, late in 2021. 3 months later, he comes into the Challenger Series and he wins a fight there. He was supposed to fight Sordi earlier on in the year, but that fight didn't happen. Now he's fighting Martin Hamlet here. So, first of all, if you don't know Hamlet, very strong wrestler, gets on top of you, just grinds you out. Really, really hard guy, you know, to beat. The only guys who beat him in the last couple of seasons are Corey Hendricks and Antonio Carlos Jr. Now, he's beat Dan Spahn, he's beat Cesar Ferreira, and he beat Teodoras, who's fighting on this card as well in last season's competition. You know, he lost to Modestas Bukauskas as well back in Cage Warriors a few years ago. But other than that, you know, it's been all wins for him, and a guy with good submissions, you know, a few rear naked chokes and arm triangles and stuff on him. He's one of those guys who will take you down and make it very, very hard for you. Silveira is the same. You know, he is the same, but in I would say in a more attacking way. He has lots of early finishes. He has lots of finishes. His last fight was a rear naked choke in the third round, but before that, he had one unanimous decision win in that title fight, which went 5 rounds, which is a good thing as well. But he won 49 seconds before that, 41 seconds before that, won halfway through the first round before that, and there's a few other first round finishes as well. So this guy is a finisher. He'll pick you up, lift you up, put you on your back and make it a tough night for you, and goes for the finish. And I looked up a couple of his fights, and it was those ones that I was talking about there. So I haven't seen too much tape on him because there isn't that much out there now. Maybe I could go further and find it somewhere else, and I was looking for it, but I couldn't. But you can tell by that. You can tell what kind of an attacking fighter he is, and I love these sort of matchups, right, where you have this dominant wrestler like Martin Hamlet, and then you have another guy who's a really, really good wrestler as well, and who's going to win that battle? You know, who's going to win the wrestling battle? I think this is going to be one of those fights where both guys are going to go out and try to wrestle out. Maybe because of that, just thinking about it a little bit more, maybe it'll turn into a striking match. Maybe it will, but I think Silveira will win it. I think he'll win the wrestling matchup if it gets to that. And now, I don't know, maybe what I'm basing that on, Hamlet's probably fought the better competition and everything, but to me, just looking at it, and maybe like some wrestling expert would be able to tell better than me, but just from the eye of someone who's been watching MMA for however many years now, 14, 15 years, or however many years it is, it just feels like Silveira has that something a bit special about him. And from watching a couple of his fights, obviously not too much of it though, because there isn't too much out there, but he just looks like a great athlete. He looks special, and when you see that name and you see who his father is as well, and you see what gym he's training out of, I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. So that's a fight. It might be the best fight in the world. It might be the best fight in the world. It could be a wrestling battle for 3 rounds, but it'll be a great fight for people like me and people like, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this as well who like that sort of fight. So that's a good one to kick off that card. Obviously the second fight on the card, and I really, really like that one, the 205 pounds. Sticking at the 205 pound division, we have Rob Wilkinson versus Viktor Pesta. Wilkinson has had a good start to his year this time. He beat Brucey Souto in his last fight, and he's on a pretty good run. You know, he's only lost 2 fights in his whole career. That was to Idrisel Adesanya and Sire Bahadurzada back when he was in the UFC in 2017, 2018. So he's been on a great run. You know, he's had a bit of kickboxing and boxing and stuff like that. Fought a couple of times in Australia, but now he's back over in America and in the PFL as well. And he's fighting, Viktor Pesta here, who, suffered a big knockout the last time. Thankfully, this isn't one of those ones where it's only a 3 or 4 week turnaround. He has a good, just looking at it here, around 8-week, 9-week turnaround, so it's good. Hopefully he got healed up and took maybe a couple of weeks off training or whatever, and was able to get back and is healthy coming back in here. And it's a very interesting fight. Rob Wilkinson, I was watching his last fight, and they were kind of saying in the commentary that he's known maybe down through the years as a bit of a grappler, a bit of a wrestler, but he's added a lot of striking. He's taking kickboxing and boxing matches on. We didn't see too much of it in that last fight because he was getting a lot of takedowns and stuff. And against against Pesta, it'll be interesting to see what he does, because Pesta came out in that last fight, and as he does a lot of the times, and he was going toe to toe with Akhmedov. He was looking, for the big shots, and he's got 3 stoppages in the 3 fights before that. 2 of them early enough in the first and second round with punches over an octagon. So, he has a lot of submissions and stuff as well on his record. But he's another guy who is a finisher, and I'm sure that Rob Wilkinson will know that, and I don't foresee this one going like the Akhmedov fight. I don't think Rob Wilkinson will come out and trade with Viktor Pesta early the way Akhmedov did. Now, it worked out obviously very well for Akhmedov, but I think Wilkinson will put him against the cage, try to pull him to the ground and try to take him down. He's good jiu-jitsu, Pesta and stuff as well. I think he'll probably, he'll be trying to avoid that, and he'll be trying to take. I think the longer this fight goes, the more it suits Rob Wilkinson. But it's an interesting fight. Wilkinson's one of those guys. He's 14-2, and because sometimes some fights happen like that. A Sanya fight, and it was a relatively close fight from memory. I haven't watched it now in a while, but that was the fight, wasn't it, where Wilkinson took Adesanya down a good few times, and people were kind of saying, "Oh, maybe Wilkinson won that fight." If I'm not mistaken, that's it, wasn't it? But still and all, after that, we kind of, maybe people wrote him off, and he obviously was out of the UFC and things, but 14-2, it's a pretty good record. Going back watching a couple of his fights, he's a very good athlete, very good all-around fighter, so maybe Rob Wilkinson is sort of guy who could make a run here and do well at 205 pounds. He'll need to beat Viktor Pesta to start that, but let's see if he can do it. The fourth fight on the card is another 205 pound fight. Emiliano Sordi takes on Delan Monte. Sordi, watching these fights, he picks his shots very well. Very light on his feet, moves around a lot. But the one fear I would have for anyone fighting at probably 185 and above is that if you do fight like that, you are going to get tired, and if you don't get your early finish, you're probably either going to get finished late, or you're probably gonna lose a decision like that. You even see like some of his fights, his last fight against Corey Hendricks, I think there was a little bit of that on it. He lost towards the latter, or towards the second half of the second round, or towards the middle of the second round. Lost by a decision to Antonio Carlos Jr. So he's a very good fighter and a very dangerous fighter. He's beaten the likes of Chris Camozzi and others as well. But I that's my one fear for him now against Delan Monte, who also lost to Antonio Carlos Jr. very early, obviously after 29 seconds earlier on this year, and that was his first fight in the PFL. He's a finisher as well, and lots of he likes to bring the fight to the ground and get a few submissions there. So look, I think it's one of those fights where you look at it from Sordi's point of view, and if he's not on track here, if he doesn't have his head and his shoulders here, this could be a potential banana skin for him. He's obviously lost his first fight in the PFL. He's been one of the favourites for the last few years. He's been around the PFL for the last few years, and this is a very big fight for him and a must win for him. And I think that early going is going to be very interesting. And I think if Sordi can land his hands early and can, I love his uppercut, hit a few jabs and a few uppercuts, push that pace and catch Monte, I think he can get him out of there. But it's one of those ones, if he doesn't, maybe Monte, and I don't know too much about Monte late, because there isn't that much step in him, going against this level of fighter late. But it'll be an interesting one to see where it goes, if it does go like that, or maybe Sordi will just be too much for him and we'll just kind of beat him up for 15 minutes. But I don't know. That's one of the ones I find hard to call. Honestly, I find it hard to call. The betting show later in the week, I might have a couple of bets for this. I think that's probably one I will avoid, to be honest. I would probably pick Sordi, but yeah, I think Sordi probably will be a big favourite, but I wouldn't. I like his style, right? I love his style. But that style at 205 pounds, I just don't know. I just don't know if it's going to be able to work the way he wants it to work over a long period of time. Anyway, as I fix my microphone here, the two-time champion, I believe, Natan Schulte takes on Martin held, who was one of the European favourites for a long time. Schulte obviously lost his last fight by a split decision against Aubin Mercier, who's also on this card as well. They fought back in 2021 as well, and Schulte lost that fight to Marcin Held. It was a very, very good fight for Held, but Schulte has some great results down through the years. He's beaten the likes of Chris Wade and Jason Hoy and others as well. He's Jesse Ronson and Ramsey Nijim and like Rabzabov, so he's a great record in the PFL down through the years. But Held was that guy who kind of stopped all of that and was able to beat him. Last year he did lose to Aubin Mercier, did Held, but he's a great record, been around for a long time. He got into the UFC and he was maybe a bit unlucky. He got some tough matchups, lost to Diego Sanchez in a close one, and he fought. He's fought in Bellator before that, but he's wins over the likes of Patricky Pitbull, who's the champion over there now, and Nasrat Hakparast in the UFC, and Derek Anderson, and Rich Clementi. He's been fighting for a very long time, and submission specialist. I know my guy Sean Denny is a big fan of Martin Held, and I'm a big fan of him too. I like his style. It'll be an interesting one. I don't know if Schulte is where he once was in his career. I know Held beat him the last time, so you'd probably have to put Held coming in here as a favourite again, even though I don't know, I don't think it's the best style matchup in the world. Well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm calling that one wrong, but I expect a performance here from Natan Schulte, I believe, because I think a big issue with him, and there's a couple of guys in PFL, but it happens in every organisation, who are kind of, it's probably maybe their time to move on at this stage and go maybe somewhere else and try something different, because he's been there and kind of done it, and he won the championship twice now, and maybe it's just his time. But a guy like Held has beat him and it kind of stopped that run. Maybe that will be the G-up that he needs in this fight. Back to the 205 pounds division then, as we get towards the top of the card. Actually, the top of the prelims is Omari Akhmedov, who got a great knockout in his last fight against Teodoras Aukstuolis. Honestly, watching Teodoras, I'm not that impressed with him. Yeah, he's just one of those guys where you look and you're like, well, how is he going to fare against someone like Akhmedov, who can wrestle, who can punch, who does everything very, very well? Like, watching his last fight against Martin, Hamlet, he just got taken down. And now, I said earlier, that's the type of fighter Hamlet is. Akhmedov used to be that type of fighter, I think, but he's kind of changed up a little bit in his career. But look, the thing about Teodoras as well, he has some great wins. He's beaten my guy Bruno Capoloza back in 2015. That was a long time ago, but that's a great win. He's a very, very good fighter. So he has the ability, and he's a finisher as well. His last two wins, he's won inside the distance. But I just think Akhmedov is going to have too much for him here. Honestly, I think he's going to push that pace. I think he's going to take him down if he needs to. But I just do think, that right hand over the top is going to be money for Akhmedov, and I think he's going to win that fight. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing in Teodoras, but I just feel like there's a lot of guys in that division in the PFL right now who are just better than him, and I think Omari Akhmedov is probably one of those. Right, let's get to the top four fights. I'm gonna kind of split them here, so I'm not gonna go in order, because I want to talk. I may be a little bit biased. I'll talk about Myles Price and Jeremy Stephens with the main event as well. So I want to talk about the co-main event and the fight under it first. Manfio against Olivier Aubin Mercier is a very interesting fight. I watched loads of Manfio now over the last few years covering these cards, and he's some unbelievable wins. Look at his last four wins: Don Madge, like Rabzabov, Clay Collard, Anthony Pettis, and even before that, Gilton Leatherback, who's a very, very good fighter, the Brazilian German, isn't he? Those are unbelievable wins, unbelievable. Okay, three of them are by decision, and he knocked out Don Madge in his last fight, but still in all, there's nothing wrong with that. Aubin Mercier has had a good time as well since he's come into the PFL. He beat Schulte, Torture, and Held, after losing 3 on the bounce and getting cut over at the UFC. And look, that last fight for Raush Manfio, he changed the one thing I think that was holding him back. And if you go and listen to any of my previous previews, you'll probably hear me saying Raush Manfio doesn't throw enough shots. He's very good. He has it all. He can do it all, but his output is just not enough. It just never was. But it was against Don Madge. Like, in previous fights, he's constantly waiting. But in this one, he was landing. He was throwing. And I'm not saying, he's not going full Max Holloway on it or anything like that. Not by any means, he wasn't doing that. But he was throwing more. He was landing that big left hand. And he beat him and he won that fight and he took it away from being a close fight. And even though he's been winning the close fights, a lot of those fights he was not necessarily way ahead in, but a lot of those fights he was the better fighter in, but it made it close because he wasn't throwing enough, if you get me. And that is the exact sort of fight that could happen against Aubin Mercier this Friday night. It really, really could work out that way if he doesn't throw enough. Now, if he does throw enough, I don't think I think Raush Manfio could be the best guy in that 155-pound division over in PFL. I really do. I think he's very, very good. But he needs to throw enough and he needs to up his output against Aubin Mercier. I was listening to the commentary on the Aubin Mercier fight and they were talking about his judoka and his background as a judoka. I think he was on the Canadian national team. And he uses it well at times. He really does. But I think he's going to need to use it more against Raush Manfio because Manfio can land hard. He's a good striker, and Aubin Mercier, he's a good all-around fighter. But I don't think he is. I'll put it this way: I think he has kind of unpacked all his potential, if you want to put it that way, and he's become, a very good all-around fighter. I feel like Raush Manfio is a very good all-around fighter, but he hasn't unpacked all his potential, if you get me. I feel like there's something left, and we saw it against Don Madge, so maybe he has now, and maybe this will be Raush Manfio for the next 5 or 6 years, and he'll go on and he'll take everything, in front of him. But you can't say that based on one fight, so this is a big one. If he wins this, sky's the limit for Raush Manfio. I really like him. I think he's a very, very good fighter. Antonio Carlos Jr. then shoe face against Bruno Souto. I don't think this one will be much of a competition, to be honest. Soto, look, he's a very good record. He's 15-4, but he went in there against Rob Wilkinson and he kind of got just thrown around and he got beaten. I didn't see too much from him, even when it was standing up when he was throwing shots. Look, he threw some good overhand rights and landed a couple as well, but maybe someone who's gone back and watched all of his fights. I watch bits and pieces of him and he can fight. He's a good fighter, but against Antonio Carlos Jr., like the way Rob Wilkinson took him down and dominated him and then hurt him as well in the start of that second round and finished him after only a few seconds. Like, I think Antonio Carlos Jr. would be able to do all of that. And we saw in his last fight, he's able to hurt someone early and get him out of there. I think Bruno Souto is the type of guy who will get taken down. If you get taken down against Antonio Carlos Jr. with the jiu-jitsu level that he has, it's curtains for you. And he's also a guy that kind of... panic is an unfair word. I wouldn't like to say anyone, especially at that level of the game, panics, but he is not as adept in the kind of the madness of striking as someone like an Antonio Carlos Jr. is. And even Rob Wilkinson, who wouldn't, as I said earlier on, he's not he's not fucking Muhammad Ali, I shouldn't be cursing, but sorry. And even he caught him in that sort of way. But look, this one is an Antonio Carlos Jr. fight all over, and I think he'll win it. And then to me, the top two fights on the card, Clay Collard, Alex Martinez, Jeremy Stevens, Myles Price. I'll talk about the main event first, and I'll leave my Irish bias till the end. But I watched a good bit of Martinez, and you know what? I like him. I really like him as a fighter. He beat Stevie Ray last time out, and you see the guys up on the wall here behind me. He's my type of fighter. He fights on the outside. He's long. He throws wheel kicks. A languid striker. Good in the clinch as well, though. And he's a good guillotine. He's the type of guy, if you do take him down, he makes you pay for it. And he can get back up as well. So a dangerous fighter. Only 9-2. Still very young in his career. He's 28 years of age. So he's not a spring chicken anymore. His only 2 losses are to Natan, Schulte, and like Rabzabov, probably 2 of the best fighters PFL have ever had. And he's beat beat Rabzabov as well before that in the fight I watched there earlier on. A close fight, but I thought he did win that fight and beat Stevie Ray, obviously, who's a top fighter in this part of the world as well. And his last time out, a close fight again, but I think he did win that one. And he obviously fights Clay Collard here, so it's a clash of styles. Clay Collard went and became a professional boxer there during the lockdown. He came back and he did great last year, beat Pettis and beat Wilton Leatherback before losing to my guy Manfio, but went in against Jeremy Stevens, who we'll talk about in a second, had a fight of the year contender, a brilliant fight. And that was 2 months ago, but still that's the type of fight that physically it'll take time to recover from, but mentally as well, after a fight like that, it feels like you want 6 or 7 months off, and he doesn't have that, and he's back in there against Martinez in a very different sort of fight. Collard is very good at breaking the distance, getting inside and landing his strikes. It's almost like he's one of the best in MMA, honestly, at doing that from a boxing range, while still being able to get out and establish that range again very, very quickly. Usually it happens, it's spurts all the time that it happens, and he's not one of those guys. I think he's very fluid in his not necessarily his game plan, but very fluid in his kind of movements in his game plan, if you want to put it that way. That does get him a little bit tired, especially later in fights. We saw with Pettis, he almost got finished in that, and even in the Stevens fight a little bit, although he was still there at the end. But I wonder, Martinez is not the type of guy to get tired. It's a 155. It's a little bit easier to move on the outside the way he does it. There's not as much output in his movement as there is in the Collard movement, if you get me. So it'll be interesting. This could be a bit of a war of attrition. Could be another close fight. Who lands the more powerful shots, or who the judges think has landed the most powerful shots? Could be a close one. But you know what? I'm really excited about this fight. I might be wrong, and I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not cursing it or anything, but I don't think this one's hitting the ground. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight, and I think it's going to be a very, very good one as well. I think that's the main event. But the fight, from my point of view, and I know a lot of people's point of view, maybe looking forward to Myles Price against Jeremy Stevens. We all know Jeremy Stevens down through the years has been, the hardest sitting 145 pounder in the UFC, and he comes up and he's fighting a 155 now. I'll mention it again, that war against Clay Collard last time out, a fight of the year contender. And okay, he's on a bit of a losing streak. He lost to Gamrot early, and Cater and Rodriguez and Aldo and Magomed Sharapov, but he has some very good wins as well. Look at everyone talking about Josh Emmett at the moment. He's beaten him. He's beaten Gilbert Martinez, beaten Duo Chai, the former champion Hinan Barrow. Darren Elkins, my guy Darren Elkins, he's beaten him, and a lot of fighters down through the years. Fought some of the best as well. He's fought Pettis before, he's fought Cerrone, he's fought Thibaut, he's fought Lozan, he's fought Dos Anjos and beat Dos Anjos as well. So a really, really, a who's who of names that he has on his record. And he comes in here and he fights Myles Price, out of Kilkenny here in Ireland. If you haven't listened to my interview, I'm sure it'll probably be up around the same time, maybe just before this, with Myles. And Myles fought Anthony Pettis in his last fight, came in there, as you probably should against Anthony Pettis, went straight across the cage for a takedown, but was caught with a big shot. Then got on top, made a slight mistake, and ended up getting triangled after a while. He was 3 years out of the cage before that fight. It's all about the turnaround here for Myles Price. If he can deal with the turnaround and he can come out at 100% Myles Price, he is a good fighter. He went in there and he beat Peter Queally in his fight before that. Now that was 3 years ago, and I spoke to Myles about it. You can go listen to that interview. There was a bit of politics and Bellator fights, and then he ended up signing with the PFL and everything like that, and it was a tough time for him, and he said he likes the quick turnaround here to get back in. 3.5 months, it's about 5 weeks since he has that last fight. So Myles he reminded me in the interview as well, he's a good boxer. Like, he's our striker, even his background was in striking before he kind of went out and he trained with Habib, trained at AK, and became a very good wrestler, and ended up winning the Peter Queally fight because of that very good wrestling. Now against Jeremy Stevens here, you're going to have to do a bit of striking, but I think the wrestling is a big key as well. If you look at that Gamrot fight, he got taken down early and submitted early, and I'm sure Myles Price will have gone back and looked at that and kind of said, well, maybe I need to strike on him a little bit here, try to take him down and try to win the fight. But if you're Jeremy Stevens you're probably saying, look, if I can stop that takedown, stop him getting on top of me, You know, Myles is probably a bit physically bigger as well. Jeremy has fought at 145, and I think Myles I think he's fought a couple of times, maybe up at 170. He's fought at 155 anyway most of his career. But Peter Queally is a kind of a big guy as well, and he was able to hold him down and take him down as well. So it's an interesting matchup. If it's the apex of Myles, it's hard to know though with 3 years out of the gate. But still in all, you probably favour Stevens here. If he can't stop that takedown, you think he'd have enough for him with the power on his feet, and if he can land a few big shots. But you know, from an Irish point of view, obviously you'd really want to see Myles come out here and perform, even if he doesn't get the win. You know, after that Pettis fight, it was very, very tough. A bitter pill to swallow, coming out there and obviously losing so quickly after so long out. But hopefully the quick turnaround here will help him, and we'll have, you know, another great fight. And it's, you know, it's the same for Jeremy Stevens, as I said, for Clay Collard as well. Turning around from that fight of the year contender to fight not too long after it as well. There might be a bit of a hangover there, but you know, that remains to be seen. But hopefully that should be a good fight if we have the apex of both guys, as for a lot of the fights on this card. So I will leave it there, everyone. It's a very good card, as I kind of broke down there. I'm really looking forward to a lot of the fights, a lot of the top talent in PFL on the card this weekend. And let me know in the comment section which fight you're most looking forward to, and who's your nap, as they'd say, and in the racing for the weekend. Who do you think will definitely win from this one? All right, I'll leave it there. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.